Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the course of communication skills. Today we are going to discuss listening skill. It is the introduction of listening skill, and in the coming lectures we will see this skill in detail. I am Muhammad Asif Khan, lecturer, Department of English, Cohort University of Science and Technology. Dear students, outline for today's discussion is that first of all I will define language skills, that what are the most important language skills which are required to acquire language. Then we will look at the receptive skill in detail. After that I will describe to you that what is listening, and then we will see that what are the different stages of listening process. After that I will give you a brief introduction of the types of listening. So this is the agenda of this very lecture. First of all, I will describe to you what are the four skills of acquiring or learning a language. The four skills of language learning are listening, speaking, reading and writing. These are the abilities which we must have for getting proficiency or expertise in any language. These four abilities allow or permits an individual to understand, know or to grasp the basic concepts of the language, and it also helps to produce or to create and to utilize language in effective interpersonal communications. With the help of these four skills, a person or an individual, he can comprehend, he can produce, and he can very easily make use of, or he can utilize language in the communication. The order of acquiring language learning skills is given below, and that is that this process starts with listening. I mean that first of all, an individual who is acquiring any language, he has to listen other individuals what they are speaking. Then comes the number of speaking. After that is reading, that is a probability, and it is the possibility that you start reading first and then acquire the skill of writing. But the most probable order of acquiring language skill is that you will first start reading that language, and after that you will start learning the capability of writing. So having a good level in any language, I have included English language in this slide. The most important thing is that a learner, he can understand or he can comprehend that very language, and he has that ability to produce that language. If he is having both these abilities, then we will say that he is having the proficiency or he is having the command of that language. The most important thing is that we should develop and we should try to build up all these 4 skills. From 4 skills I mean listening, speaking, reading and writing. Now we will see that what are receptive skills. As I have mentioned here, that listening and reading are the receptive skills. These 2 skills are called receptive skills because learner do not need to produce language when he is performing that very action. When he is using these 2 skills, he is actually on the receiving end, and he has to receive the message and then he has to understand that very message. So these are the skills which are very important for the receivers of the message. Now let's see the productive skills. What are these productive skills? These productive skills are speaking and writing. These skills are called productive skills as the learner is performing an action of producing language. In receptive skills, the person is receiving the message, and in productive skills, the person is producing language. Now let us see the receptive skills in detail. As I have already mentioned that reading and listening are receptive skills, let's see each skill point by point. Reading is basically a visual medium. I mean that when someone is reading something, actually he is viewing the images or diagrams. I mean that he is using alphabets or anything which he can view. While listening, we are hearing sounds. Reading is a learned skill. We learn it with the passage of time gradually, and there are different techniques for learning reading. But listening is not a learned skill. Actually, it is more about an acquired skill. We can learn, as we will see that there are different strategies which we can use for listening, but most of this very skill naturally acquired skill. Now reading has standard forms. I mean that written language is a standardized language. It has same spellings. On the other hand, listening does not have standard forms, because when we listen different accents. We listen weak forms where different person pronounce same words in different way. We have connected forms where using those short forms often speakers are making short few things. That makes the conversation very difficult. So another important thing is that in reading, the word boundaries are very clear. Everything is permanent. Word boundaries in reading are very clear, and we can very easily observe the boundaries of the words in reading, but these very boundaries are very obscure, unclear and indistinct in listening. You can see that some people use dissimilar pronunciations. We see very different or diverse accents. Even a single individual pronounce the same word with different accent. So the written word is a permanent, having a stable boundary, whereas the spoken words have temporary boundaries, because we see that a number of times the same word is pronounced with different pronunciations. So in reading, understanding a message is a bit easier than in listening, where we see that sometimes learners face very higher level of confusion or anxiety when they are trying to understand the same message. Let's move towards the next slide, in which I will brief you about the listening skill. Now the question is that what is listening? Basically, listening includes or listening is that skill in which we first of all we recognize or identify the sounds of speech, and then we convert these very verbal or the vocal messages which we received into words and sentences. So what is listening? Listening is a process which comprises of recognizing sounds and then converting them or changing them or processing them into words and sentences. So in listening, when we listen something, basically we are using two organs. We use our ear to receive individual sounds, and we use our brain to convert these into message that means something to us. In listening process, we convert these meaningless sounds into meaningful messages. So it is a very important skill, and starts from recognizing sounds. Then it includes the processing of these very sounds. We use two organs. The first one is our ears, from which we receive different sounds, and the second is that we use our brain and translate all these sounds into a meaningful message. So the next question is that what is the importance of listening? Listening skill is a very important skill in all aspects of our life. If we look at the maintaining our personal relations, or if we are going to get our jobs done, or if we are sitting in the class and we are taking notes, listening is very important. Or if we are trying to figure out that which bus we have to take to the airport, basically we are using the listening skill. Regardless of how we are engaging with listening, it is very important to understand that this very skill, the skill of listening, it involves more than just hearing the words that are directed to us. As I told you in the earlier slide, that listening is a process in which we are generating meanings from the sounds. So listening is an active process by which we can make sense of a communication. We assess different sounds that are coming to us and then process them into meaningful sentences, meaningful words, and then we respond to what we hear. We give feedback to that very thing. So listening is very important, and as I told you that listening is an active process. It's not a passive process. Sometimes we are listening passively, but it is very much active process. In the next slide, we will see different stages of listening process. As I told you that listening is an active process. Listening process involves 5 stages. First of all, we receive a message. Receiving means we are getting the message coming from someone. Someone is sending the message and we are receiving that message. As we already discussed that listening is a receptive skill. So the first stage is that we are receiving a message. Then we move towards understanding or comprehending that message. After that we evaluate, assess or judge that message. Then we remember, try to recollect different things and try to remember those things which we are listening. There are different techniques and I will explain those techniques in the coming lectures. And in the end we respond to all this very conversation which is going on there. We are receiving some sounds, some message, say words, sentences, and we then assess them. First of all, we understand that message, that what the sender is saying. Then we evaluate that very thing and we keep that thing in our mind, and after that we respond and complete that the whole process of communication, in which the sender sends a message and receiver receives that message and gives feedback. So I will give you a brief explanation of this process. On the whole, if we consider an effective listener, he must exercise these very things. That is, that he hear and identify the speech sounds. If the listener is not hearing attentively and he is not recognizing or spotting out what the speaker is speaking to him, then the conversation will fail. The second thing is that he should comprehend the message of those very sounds which he is receiving. Then he should very seriously assess or evaluate the message he has got from the sender. The next stage is that he should remember what is being said to him, and the last stage is that he should respond to that very message. It is not necessary that he should verbally respond to that message. If he is non-verbally responding to that message, that is also okay, and it shows that he is understanding what the sender is saying. Because communication will be incomplete if he is giving no response. It shows that the receiver is not understanding what the sender is sending to him. If we say that someone is proficiently or effectively engaging with all these 5 stages, the stages of receiving, understanding, evaluating, remembering and responding, then so effectively engaging with all 5 stages of the listening process lets us best gather the information we need from the world around us. So now let's see the types of listening. The first one is positive listening. It has 2 subdivisions. The first is active. Active listening is basically when we are understanding what the sender is saying and we give feedbacks. The second type of positive listening is polite listening. Basically, listener is not interpreting in the pauses of the speakers what he is saying. Active listener responds to the speaker, but the polite listener, he stays calm, he is not responding to him. The second type of listening is neutral listening, which has two subtypes. The first one is passive. It is the type of listening in which the listener is just gathering the information and he is not questioning, or he remains neutral. The second type is selective listening. It is once again a neutral type of listening, because the listener is hearing only what he wants to hear. He is choosing things out of that, and he is very careful about that what he has to listen and what he has to skip. So he is clear about that. And the last type of listening is negative listening, and it has two further subdivisions. The first category of negative type of listening is defensive listening. In this type of listening, the listener is distrustful, he is skeptical, having doubts. You will see that he is having an unconvincing attitude, as if he is not convinced what the speaker is saying. He is simply distracted from the message that the sender is sending to him. So he is unfocused, and you see that his approach or the stance is that he is doubtful about the speaker. And the second type of negative listening is aggressive listening. In this listening, the listener tries to stop the speaker. He tries to be aggressive, he is violent, and he is giving forceful responses and feedbacks. He off and on tries to stop the speaker to continue his speaking. So these are the types of listening. In this whole discussion, we discussed 4 language skills, and then we look at the order of acquiring these 4 language skills. After that, I have given you the description of receptive skill and productive skill, give you a bit explanation of 2 the receptive skills. The first one is reading and the second one is listening. After that, we discussed in detail what is listening and what involves in this very skill. After that, I gave you 5 stages of the listening process, and we also discussed the simple types of listening. Those are positive, neutral and negative listening. So thank you very much for listening passionately.